Hi and welcome to my Photoshop Basics series of tutorials. In this tutorial we're going to quickly go over how to save an image within Photoshop. To do that we need an image. So we'll go to File, Open, and we'll choose Ducky again. If you've forgotten where these are held on your computer, it's on your C drive, Programs Files, Adobe Photoshop CS, Samples folder. Click Open, and there we have our image. So Photoshop CS has about 20 different file formats that we can save the image in. Most of these you'll never use. There's about 3 or 4 that have specific uses, and they're the ones that we'll touch on. To save the image, we go to File, Save As, and we're presented with this dialog. Now the first one we're going to look at is the Photoshop native file format. Now if we saved an image in this format, it will retain all layer information, all mask information, all channel information, basically everything that we've done in Photoshop. It'll save the history. So if you're planning to come back to this image at a later date, then this is the format to go for. The other main one, JPEG. Now if you've finished creating your image or editing your image, this is probably the best one to save the image as. There are various levels of compression within a JPEG file that you can choose. It also flattens the image. In other words, it gets rid of any mask information, layer information, channel information. It flattens it all. So if you reopened it, you'd lose all your layer information. So be careful, be aware. Another file format often used is a PNG, quite often used for images that you're going to be putting up on the web. It's a smaller file size. It will hold alpha or transparency data, and the other one is TIFF, which is quite often used when sending an image to printers. A lot of these file formats, they go back quite far, and a lot of them derive from traditional techniques within the image creation industry. We're just going to save this as a Photoshop file. If we tick the Save As Copy button, it will be saved as Ducky Copy. And the handy reason for this is if you wanted to save files at different levels of editing. We're not going to use that at the moment, so we can just press save. Once we have saved the image and named it, as we go along and we're still editing it, every now and then we can click save, and I strongly advise you to do this because you don't want to lose your work. Photoshop is probably one of the most stable applications going, but it does crash, and it's a shame if it does that. You end up losing a lot of the work. If you save quite often and frequently, then you're going to minimize how much work you've lost. If we go down File, Save for Web, this is generally used to save images for use on the internet. And there's a couple of things that you need to look at down here. If we look unsaved, the file size is 33.64K. Here we choose the file format. GIF is a fairly old format. You probably see more of animated GIFs. These will hold animation information, which we'll go into at a much later date. JPEG, which is the one you're probably most familiar with, and you have PNG 8, which is basically a PNG file with one layer, and PNG 24 is a PNG file that will hold transparency information. The WBMP we'll leave for now. Now if we go into JPEG, we get a dialog box saying with a low, medium, high, very high and maximum. These stand for compression levels. For instance, if we saved it JPEG as maximum, the file size is 164.1K. If we did it at its lowest, we can see that the file size is 9.15K, and you can see some deterioration in the image. So you need to be aware of this. If it's acceptable, then obviously for the web the lower file size is better. Medium, you can see the image slightly improve, but the file size goes up, 13K. High, so around 33K. Very high, 63K. And maximum, 164K. If we were to save it 164K, we'd be able to rework the image later. If we were to save it on very low, we've lost a lot of information. The image is being compressed, and if we wanted to work on this image again, it would be brought in at just over 9K. So editing it afterwards wouldn't be a good idea, because 9.5K it would be brought in at a level of high at its maximum. So if we were to choose low again in the second time, it would be even lower than 9K. So that's why you should never keep opening JPEGs, edit them and then save the compressed version. You should always leave it at its maximum file size if you're going to rework the image. So we'll just click on high and we'll save. Because we haven't saved the JPEG version earlier, it's asking us where we want to save the image. Just save it in the work folder, images only. The HTML and images, or HTML only, refers to an image that you're using within a website build. We'll just use it as images only, and we'll click save, and that's it, saved. Okay, this was just a short tutorial on the basics of saving an image. Like I said, save your file often to save a bit of upset if the program crashes, and I would advise saving it in the Photoshop native file format until you've actually finished with the image. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.